Justin Herbert did not win the MVP award on Thursday night, but the one vote he did get has sent the NFL world into a frenzy.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, man? Welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 10 seasons, but this is our 8th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day as part of the #1 sports podcast network. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, Justin Herbert got an MVP vote, which is a huge shock to a lot of people. But if you watched the Chargers this year, you know that the Chargers wouldn't have even sniffed the playoffs if Justin Herbert was not on the football field. And we got a lot of offensive line questions. Who should be playing at left tackle? Should it be Rashawn Slater? Should it be Joe Alt? We're going to talk about that. And what's one move that we absolutely want to see the Chargers make this offseason?
Yeah, and there has to be more than one, but if you had to pick one, I think we have a pretty good one. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. David, this show isn't starting with where I thought it was going to start because I did not expect Justin Herbert to be getting an MVP vote at the NFL awards ceremony on Thursday night. But the least surprising thing, though, is that the one vote that Justin Herbert did get has sent the world into a controversy, at least in NFL terms, because this is how it all played out. MVP award was announced on Thursday night, and Matthew Stafford beat Drake Maye 24-23 in first place votes. The reason there is controversy is because Justin Herbert received one first place vote, which could have cost Drake Maye the MVP award. And Patriots fans are crashing out all over social media, which is just hilarious because obviously it's a very spoiled fan base and a pampered fan base that has had plenty of success to not lose
That's
sleep.
Literally playing in the Super Bowl on Sunday.
Regular season. Exactly. I mean, should we care more about, him being the Super Bowl MVP? But Sam Monson is the one who came out, the NFL expert that made the vote. And I give him a lot of credit. Let me start with that because he came out and said it. This is anonymous. We could have never found out, but this was his argument for it. I was the Justin Herbert vote. The guy had the worst offensive line in the NFL all season, and despite all of that, working miracles in almost every single game, Stafford's offensive line became 2/5 as bad as Herbert's for 5 minutes and became a turnover howitzer. He embodied value. So, David, he's putting it out there. That is his argument for it. I don't think Justin Herbert should have won the MVP award, but at least somebody is actually kind of taking the big value part of things into account.
Absolutely. I think if you watched what Justin Herbert was able to do this year under absolutely unbelievable NFL, never before seen type of pressure. I found a great tweet here from Kyle M_FF who outlined it quite beautifully. He said Herbert experienced the highest pressure rate over expectation at 14.59%. Herbert's O-line was ranked dead last in pass block win rate at 54% and also dead last in the pass blocking grade at 49.7. Herbert was also hit 129 times, which is the most in the league, while also not missing a single game due to injury, even though he broke his hand in the Raiders game and came back and won that game. And oh, by the way, I think I can count at least 3 or 4 examples that if Justin Herbert doesn't make superhuman Herculean plays, the Chargers don't win those games. And, without him, the amount of hits that he was able to take and can still be able to make plays, I think shows why Justin Herbert was so incredibly valuable and why he is deserving of this vote.
Yeah, and I think, had they won that game against the Texans, he'd gotten the ball back and they lead a game-winning drive there. I think you could have made a real argument had they won out and become the #1 seed in the NFL, or in the AFC, I should say, right? Yeah. And he was able to pull that off given his circumstances. Now, he was never going to get enough votes to be able to win this award, and I think that's where a lot of the anger comes from, right? Because This is basically, you're burning a vote when you really know it's going to come down to 2 players, right? At the same time, two people voted for Josh Allen, who clearly was not the MVP this year. Even if you wanted to just say who was more valuable to their team, I think, with Justin Herbert's situation behind a terrible offensive line, with not like an elite set of skill position players, ranked one of the worst supporting casts in the league, and you compare that to Josh Allen, who, yes, had middling receivers for sure, but also had a great offensive line, had one of the best running backs in the leagues in James Cook, and was able to, do a lot of things because of all of those parts of it that were, afforded to him. We saw the game against the Texans he had to play. He was sacked like 9 or 10 times when his offensive line wasn't right? And he was just totally self-destructed. That is the game that Justin Herbert was playing the entire season. And I think the other thing is like, first of all, Sam Monson could have had Matthew Stafford as his second place vote. We don't know that at this point, which would have made this a moot point because it just would have meant that Matthew Stafford had 25 votes and Drake Maye had 23 votes. We don't know that. But at the same time, like, Matthew Stafford is also a very worthy MVP guy, like a winner. He's a very worthy MVP winner. And I am glad that in this case, they were focused less on how many wins did this quarterback have, because we talked about it before, like you have to have an X amount of wins to even be in the conversation, and more about kind of the teams they played against, touchdowns, passing yards, things like that. And it's not as if like some random person won it that had no argument to win it. Like Matthew Stafford won it and he deserved it.
Yeah, he definitely did. I mean, he did what he did against some of the toughest competition in the NFL, and that is worth saying something. And say what you want about what the Patriots have done, and how they got to the Super Bowl. They are actually going to be playing in the game on Sunday, but we also have to think and take into account that the stats that Drake Maye put up was against the easiest schedule in the NFL. It is definitely part of it. Not trying to discount completely what he's done, but you have to take into account the level of competition that these two quarterbacks played, and also what these guys were able to produce. And, with what Matthew Stafford did, he did it against a very, very tough schedule and was still incredibly productive.
Yeah, and had several kind of special teams gaps that cost them wins, and we know how important wins are to this. Should have beat the Seahawks both times if you don't have one of the craziest 2-point conversion attempts that you've ever seen, bouncing off a helmet, rolling into the end zone and getting picked up by another team. And they could have easily been the number 1 overall seed in the NFC and, been much closer in wins to what Drake Maye and the Patriots were able to do. Yes, obviously, the Patriots had a cake-easy schedule, and although Drake Maye did have, a better record and some better counting stats against the common opponents that he and Matthew Stafford both had, at the same time, that doesn't still account for the fact that Drake Maye played 2 playoff teams or 3 games against playoff teams his entire season, right? And played a ton of backup quarterbacks and just had a really, really easy slate, and that has to matter too. And I think the other thing is he had a really good offensive line who ranked 6th in composite pass protection ratings, right? Which is considering blown block percentage, PFF grades, and ESPN's pass block win rate. Even with that, he was still sacked 47 times. But the other part of it is Maye was also, per PFF, tied for the second most in sacks that were considered his faults. That means taking sacks. He took 20 sacks that were not attributed to his offensive line.
That's a lot.
In 2025, which means 43% of the sacks that he took were not on the line. There are other things that matter. And he would have been a deserving candidate had they gone in that direction. But to say Justin Herbert cost him that, I think is crazy. You have Justin Herbert taking all these strays for something that is a regular season award, right? Drake Maye being in the Super Bowl doesn't matter to this conversation.
No.
This is a regular season award. The Chargers win, with an average quarterback, they maybe win 3 or 4 games with what they had to deal with and the pressure rate that he had to deal with. So Drake Maye, if you would have won, I would have said, hey, good for you. He was deserving of it. But Matthew Stafford won, and it's not Justin Herbert's fault. And I do appreciate Sam Monson looking a little bit outside of the box as far as saying, hey, you're calling it the most valuable player. You're not saying best player in the league. You're not saying best stats in the league. You're saying most valuable player. And I do really think it's hard, right, to look at, what people had to deal with and say there was anyone that was more valuable to their team than Justin Herbert carrying this team to 11 wins in 2025. But we do have more to get into because it is Fan Mail Friday, and we have a lot of questions about the offensive line, including if Joe Alt should be the left tackle in 2026. We're getting into all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. Finding a doctor you actually like can feel like discovering a diamond in the rough. Sure, you want someone who's in network, nearby, and has availability, but you also want a doctor who listens, makes you feel comfortable, and explains things clearly. That kind of doctor exists, and the best way to find them is with ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality, in-network doctors so you can find someone you love without all the hassle. We're talking about booking in-network appointments with more than 150,000 providers across all 50 states, covering over 200 specialties from primary care, dentistry, dermatology, and even eye care. I'll admit it, I've definitely put off doctor appointments in the past. I think most guys my age have definitely done that, but you feel a lot better about it when you get all of the information that ZocDoc can give to you, and you can see real-time availability and book instantly, no phone calls, no waiting on hold. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL to find and instantly book a doctor that you love today. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring, Indeed is all that you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates even faster. If I needed to hire someone for this show, me and David needed a little extra help, I know I would go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I need, because the quality of the candidate is such an important part of the process. And sponsored jobs boost your post to the people who are the best match for your role, and that makes a big difference. And according to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now, and to support the show, make sure you say you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Dave, we put out several fan posts the last couple of weeks, and it is very clear the one thing you guys want to hear about the most is the offensive line, and for good reason, because not only do you have the interior, which has to kind of be uprooted from the base level and replaced, but you also have a tackle situation that's a little uncertain, because not just one, right, Rashawn Slater, but two of your tackles are coming off of major injury, which I think is important, and not enough people talk about with Joe Wall. But Joe Wall did play well at left tackle. Should he stay there?
Dave, I still got a question about my boy Joe Alt. He should be the starting left tackle to start the 2026 season, and it should not be any conversation to have about this. What is your thought? Thank you. Love you.
David, what do you think?
Well, the argument is that Rashawn Slater had 3 years of a run block grade over 80 and a pass blocking grade over 90.
Playing left tackle. Yeah.
Playing left tackle. Okay. Rashawn Slater also is the highest paid offensive lineman in the league, and that's because of how effective he was as a left tackle. We're talking about a second team All-Pro, a guy who won this award in his rookie season, and in 2024, he was almost as dominant or even more so, which honestly he probably should have picked up another All-Pro nod in that year. So let's not discount here how unbelievably good Rashawn Slater was at playing left tackle.
Well, I think it's also just about assuming that he can't still do it, right? And I think this is the biggest thing is, like, let's say in this scenario, right, you're putting Joe at left tackle and you're trying to play Rashawn Slater at right tackle, which is just a bad idea, because you have seen Joe Alt play at a high level playing right tackle already. He already made the transition. He already went through the tough part of having to go through an offseason and play a regular season at a position he hadn't played before. And he played it extremely well. Whereas Rashawn Slater's never played that. So, like, even if Joe Alt was slightly better at left tackle than Rashawn Slater is coming back from his injury, it would still make no sense to get a much worse right tackle potentially out of it, because you just don't know. Then have Joe Alt be a good right tackle and have Rashawn Slater be a good left tackle. So I understand wanting to see Joe Alt at left tackle. It's his natural position. He played extremely well there in, 5-ish games in the last season, including all the games, time that he missed last year. But it just doesn't make sense. Like, you have to, the main plan for you going into the season has to be for Rashawn Slater to be the left tackle until he shows that he can't do it. And I think that's why we get another one here from Matthew Slater saying something, pretty similar.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Matthew from Vegas. So I've been hearing a lot of discussions about if Joe Alt will be a left tackle again for the rest of his career, and Rashawn Slater be a left guard. If that happens, what do we do for right tackle? Do we get one from the free agency or get one from the draft for the first round pick? But let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys both up.
This is another thing that people have kind of speculated. Okay, we'll just move Rashawn Slater to guard and make him like egregiously the most paid guard ever in NFL history. Yeah. Not just the highest paid offensive lineman, now playing not the highest paid position on the offensive line. But that's kind of part of this. Is like if you do the Joe Alt thing at left tackle and you move Rashawn Slater to guard, now you do have a massive hole at right tackle, and it's hard to know at this point how much you should spend to try to fill it.
Yeah, and I think to me, you have to look at this, and if you want to really kind of maximize the best, of your assets and be able to put them in, positions to give you the most return on your investments, it's with these guys as the bookends on each side. I think you have to hope that Rashawn Slater is going to be able to, get back to what he was and be who he is and be able to play left tackle at a very, very high level and have, your other really, really talented, very, very large human being on the other side playing right tackle. And I think that's how you are going to maximize what this offensive line can be.
Yeah, and I think this is the other thing, right? Like, you could use your if you decide to do that, you could use your first round pick on a right tackle, and then you're basically, even before you're seeing what he can do, making the decision that he's not going to be out there and not going to be able to play tackle at all is what you're saying if you do that. Because the thing is, if you use a first round pick at 22 on a right tackle, and then Rashawn Slater comes back and is awesome at tackle again, now you just spent your most valuable draft pick on a tackle, and now he's a swing tackle, right? And you have Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater locked up through the 2028 season. So you just drafted a swing tackle that, outside of injuries, which, yes, you'd have a very valuable piece in case one of those guys gets injured, and Rashawn Slater has an injury history. But if they stay healthy, now you have a first-round pick that's wasting away on your bench and not getting anything out of that because you can have both of these guys still on your roster through 2028. So, yes, you have to have a contingency plan. You don't know what level he's going to be when he comes back. At the same time, that's the hard part, is you're going to have to address, you're going to have to go through and navigate free agency and navigate the draft before you actually know what he's going to look like once he gets back out.
You got to add depth regardless.
100%, because you probably don't have Trey Pipkins or Jamari Salter coming back, more than likely. But we have one more here along this similar vein.
Hi, Dan and David. This is Ryan from We Are the Storm. Hey, I'm concerned about Rashawn Slater and his injury history going into next year. Should we be focused on trying to rehab him so he can start and play, or should we hedge our bets and draft a possible replacement for him and move him either to guard or tackle, or just have some insurance policy? Because his injury could be career ending. Is that correct? Love your show. Talk to you guys later. Thank you.
I understand the concern, and yes, it could be career ending. That has happened before. I mean, it basically was for someone like J.C. Jackson, but most players can return from this injury, including Chiefs left tackle Josh Simmons, who came back and had the second highest pass blocking grade of any rookie tackle after tearing his patellar tendon last season. So there is, reference for someone being able to come back and play at a high level. But David, I think this, and since we talked about kind of the contingency plans, I think this is more just about kind of like where your concern level is at, that Rashawn Slater can kind of find that prior for him.
Yeah, I mean, from what we know about Rashawn Slater, this is a unbelievably incredibly hard worker. I mean, a guy who is practicing pass sets on his honeymoon. I mean, we're talking about a guy who eats, sleeps, breathes football at all times, and also a guy who's incredibly intelligent, and he has the benefits of being able to rehab at a state-of-the-art facility that has every single thing you could possibly hope for to try to cut down the recovery time and maximize the effectiveness of this surgery so he can come back and be the guy we all know he is capable of being.
And I think the important part of that is too, like, also when it happened, right? It happened a month and a half before the season even started, right? Or a month before the season even started. So it's not something he dealt with in week 10 last year and, is going to have to try to rush it to get back in 9 months. Like, I think there's a legitimate chance he's back by the beginning of training camp, and maybe they'll slow play it until then. But Daniel Popper had a great article when it happened, talking to the Angels, basically specialist, their doctor that deals with a lot of these kind of things. And he said that a lot of players do come back from it. They don't always come back the same, like we talked about, J.C. Jackson. That basically ended his career, but I think he had some other screws loose maybe a little bit too that played a factor into that. But let's also, like I said, not forget Joel also had a serious ankle injury, and nobody's worried about that rearing its ugly head again, right? So, there's a lot of different things you could do, and ways to look at this. But the doctor that Daniel Popper talked to also said that it's easier for an offensive lineman, theoretically, to come back from this if you're not playing a skill position that's based on speed, based on quickness, and a lot of those things. So maybe it's, just because of that supernatural work ethic, I think Rashawn Slater is going to be able to come back and be good. Can I say he'll be exactly what he was before? No. But I would say that if you have 90% of that, you're still getting one of the best left tackles in Chargers history. But we still have more to get into, including how the Chargers can rebuild this interior offensive line. And if there was only one move we could make in free agency, what would it be, and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. What if sports were like trade markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood predictions markets. It's not you against the house, it's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action, so when the momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but I never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator, play by play. You decide, trade every play with Robinhood. Now available across the U.S., download the Robinhood app now to begin. Future and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy workdays, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference, and that's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. It's easy to see why. Meals come ready and fit for your schedule. 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays, or quick lunches. Over 30 weekly options, including family-sized meals and different dietary choices. Recipes are simple but feel elevated, even restaurant quality. And that's the great thing, right? If it doesn't taste good, it doesn't matter. And with Home Chef, you're getting something that tastes great. And also, right, you get that variety. You have a lot of different options to choose from. And for a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and most importantly, free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive the free dessert. Dave, we still have more to get into on this Fan Mail Friday, and we want to send a shout out to all of the everydayers who make shows like this possible. And there are so many good ones again today. You guys have come out in droves for all of the fan shows we've been able to do, even the ones that have been interrupted by big news. But we do have a couple more that I want to get to here, David, continuing with this offensive line, because 80% of them were offensive line based, I would say. This one is from Darren Tassone, who says, what's the one off-season move that if the Chargers made would make you happy no matter what else they did? It could be in free agency, the draft, re-signing, or cutting players. No doubt for me, it'd be signing Tyler Linderbaum. Thanks for making every pod entertaining. David, what do you think?
Well, Darren, it seems like birds of a feather. We flock together and we fly together. You're a very intelligent, very smart man, because that's clearly what I want to do as well. I want to give Justin Herbert the absolute best center on the market, give him the #1 guy, pay him whatever the money is, give him the 4 or 5 year deal. I don't care. I want the absolute best center available in football protecting Justin Herbert, because we know what he is capable of doing when he has quality protection. The last time he had a really good center, he was putting up gigantic numbers. So we need to see that again. It is unacceptable for the Chargers to do anything other than attacking this specific issue with very specific energy.
Yeah, targeted energy, right? Like intentional energy, and
yes.
Just kind of a refusal to not upgrade in a big way. And like, I don't think that's a bad pick. Like, if I had to pick one, it probably would be someone like a Tyler Linderbaum. But that doesn't mean he's the only good option, right? It definitely doesn't mean he's not the only. He's the only option that would be an upgrade. But that's the part of this. Like, there's no one single move, right? Like, because even if you get Linderbaum, you still have 2 guard spots that you have to fill, and also you're not re-signing Odafe Owe, which would be up there for me even as a guy to re-sign, right? Because if you're including all that stuff, by signing Tyler Linderbaum, you're letting go of your best edge rusher right now, or your biggest free agent defensively too. So everything comes with a cost. But if you had to have one move, the one that would make me happiest would be getting the highest caliber interior offensive lineman. And as we've talked about before, like a center can really elevate the players around them. So getting that center part of the offensive line figured out, I don't think would be a bad choice. But let's get to this one from Jose Alto, who says, how would you gentlemen approach the restructuring of the interior offensive line? Would you look to draft top linemen in the first and second round, or would you rather focus on signing established players in free agency? What do you think?
Both? Yeah, both. That's definitely going to be the way that I want this to be done. Like I said, I want them to get the absolute best protection. And, to me, that looks like attacking it, getting at least 2 proven starters out of free agency, and then going to draft another offensive lineman. If that's, drafting him at 22, then that's drafting him at 22. That's fine with me. I just think that they need to make sure that they come out of this offseason with probably 3 to 5 new players on the offensive line, including starting caliber talent and quality depth, because there's just not a lot of guys in that building to be able to build on the future that's in the middle of this offensive line. Obviously, if Rashawn and Joe Alt come back and they are the players we think they are, then you're going to feel great about that. But everywhere else could use quality on the number 1 line and behind them.
Yeah, it has to be both. I mean, there's just really no way. Like, you're not going to be able to spend top of the line money and replace the whole interior of your offensive line. At the same time, it feels like bare minimum you have to upgrade in a major way 2 of those 3 positions. So like that is kind of what you're dealing with from that standpoint. So like, to me, it looks like this. Like, one top of the market deal for an offensive lineman is to make sure you're getting someone that can play at an above average level or be great. Like, that's number 1. Maybe one mid-market deal, right, where you're getting someone who, isn't going to make top of the line money, but can
get
still
a Matt Filer type deal in there.
Be a replacement to, or an upgrade over what you had, right? And then spending one of your top 2 picks on an offensive lineman. Like, to me, it has to be all 3 of those things in an ideal offensive line if you're truly serious about fixing something that,
and you better be,
has been the biggest reason that you've, had 2 embarrassing playoff losses in the last 2 seasons. But let's get one more here from Mark Catlin, who says, if Zion walks, isn't it a must to get a proven high caliber veteran interior offensive lineman? Maybe it's just me, but it's cringy thought to me knowing we very well may have 3 new starting linemen to bring up to speed ASAP. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, with Zion, obviously it depends on the money and where you're comfortable with, based off of who he has shown to be as a guard in the NFL, a guard that's just, an average NFL player, a guy that's not great. He's not terrible. He's been available, been very durable, which is great. But yeah, I mean, like we've said it before, I mean, if you have to replace him, then you have to get quality. You have to get somebody who's better. You got to get somebody who, and that doesn't necessarily mean, just as expensive. You just need somebody who you can fill in, put in that spot, and be able to get higher quality play, which you look at the numbers the last few years for Zion, he's only been just about average in, his NFL career. So there are improvements, and there are guys out there that can be an improvement for probably a little bit less money, depending on the age.
Especially when you have, a Shanahan-ian type of offense, and also a Mike McDaniel who can kind of work around the offensive line that he has to help in his own way. But I think the important part here, Mark, is like, you can't really look at it like the Chargers getting 3 new offensive linemen and having to get them up to speed. Nobody knows this new offense that they have right now. Even if they're going to bring back the same 3 guys they had last year.
Nobody's
Another problem with that is like continuity was the whole reason that Joe Ortiz basically told us he didn't do more on the offensive lines, because they wanted to build some continuity there. So like, I would way rather have 3 brand new guys that have never spoken to Justin Herbert or Mike McDaniel in their lives than run back the same 3 guys that you had last season.
I'm with you on that.
When you have a brand new offensive coordinator coming in, I think it's much less important that you're keeping guys who are already here and trying to build upon that, because everybody's going to be learning a new offense. If anything, you'd be trying to find new offensive linemen who have worked in a Shanahanian, McVay, McDaniel type of offense, because then they have a leg up, and a leg up that a Zion Johnson doesn't have, that a Bradley Bozeman doesn't have, and also that a Mekhi Becton definitely doesn't have, because he's a terrible fit for what the Chargers are going to be running offensively now. But
see ya.
That's going to wrap things up for today's show. Thank you to everyone who contributed to today's show. I meant to do a big Geo at the beginning because he did have a question about the MVP vote. Yes, we were very, very surprised by that. I did not see it coming, but it was also hilarious. But thanks to all the everydayers out there who contributed, and hit us up at Locked On LAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page, where you can also find the show every day, or call it into the voicemail line like the 3 that we had today. I love getting the voicemails at 323-524-7924 and getting your 30-second Chargers questions in there. To make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and listen wherever you get your podcast from. And if you want an ad-free audio version of the podcast, you can do that in the Locked On Everydayer Club, which you can find in the show notes, $5 a month or $50 for a year to get an ad-free version of the audio podcast, which I know some people would be very interested in, and also the Locked On Chargers exclusive Discord channel. So if you're interested in that, we're happy to have you. If you're not, you're still going to be getting the same 5 shows, audio and video, that you get every week for free, as it's always going to be. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. Justin Herbert, 1 MVP vote this year, 30 MVP votes next year. Sign of things to come. But we will be back with you guys on Monday with all of the latest news. There's definitely some rumblings on the defensive side of some coaches we could see hired over the weekend, so we're going to monitor that as Chris O'Leary kind of solidifies his staff, and maybe even Mike McDaniel wants to shake things up a little bit on the offensive side, because still a lot of Greg Roman-y hires on this offensive staff right now that could be changed up. But that's going to do it for today's show. We'll be back with you guys on Monday as the only daily Chargers podcast out there. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.